What's up, guys? It's Matt here back for today's edition of Every Day in the Word, and we are starting a new book today. I'm excited for us to start the book of Judges today. We finished Joshua yesterday. We watched Joshua give his last charge to the people for obedience, and then Joshua dies, and then now we pick it up in Judges, and we see the people after Joshua, their response to trying to clean out the land, if you will, of all of the Canaanites that they left because they didn't finish the job. So let's see if they do that, starting now in chapter 1 of verse 1 of the book of Judges.
Judges, chapter 1. After the death of Joshua, the people of Israel inquired of the Lord, "Who shall go up first for us against the Canaanites to fight against them?" The Lord said, "Judah shall go up. Behold, I have given the land into his hand." And Judah said to Simeon his brother, "Come up with me into the territory allotted to me, that we may fight against the Canaanites. And I likewise will go with you into the territory allotted to you." So Simeon went with him. Then Judah went up, and the Lord gave the Canaanites and the Perizzites into their hand, and they defeated 10,000 of them at Bezek. They found Adonai-Bezek at Bezek, and fought against him, and defeated the Canaanites and the Perizzites. Adonai-Bezek fled, but they pursued him, and caught him, and cut off his thumbs and his big toes. And Adonai-Bezek said, 70 kings with their thumbs and their big toes cut off used to pick up scraps under my table. As I have done, so God has repaid me. And they brought him to Jerusalem, and he died there. And the men of Judah fought against Jerusalem, and captured it, and struck it with the edge of the sword, and set the city on fire. And afterward the men of Judah went down to fight against the Canaanites who lived in the hill country in the Negeb, and in the lowland. And Judah went against the Canaanites who lived in Hebron. Now the name of Hebron was formerly Kiriath Arba. And they defeated Sheshai, and Ahiman, and Talmai. From there they went against the inhabitants of Debir. The name of Debir was formerly Kiriath Sepher. And Caleb said, "He who attacks Kiriath Sepher and captures it, I will give him Achsah my daughter for a wife." And Othniel the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, captured it. And he gave him Achsah his daughter for a wife. When she came to him, she urged him to ask her father for a field. And she dismounted from her donkey, and Caleb said to her, "What do you want?" She said to him, "Give me a blessing. Since you have set me in the land of the Negeb, give me also springs of water." And Caleb gave her the upper springs and the lower springs. And the descendants of the Kenite, Moses' father-in-law, went up with the people of Judah from the city of palms into the wilderness of Judah, which lies in the Negeb near Arad. And they went and settled with the people. And Judah went with Simeon his brother, and they defeated the Canaanites, who inhabited Zephath, and devoted it to destruction. So the name of the city was called Hormah. Judah also captured Gaza with its territory, and Ashkelon with its territory, and Ekron with its territory. And the Lord was with Judah, and he took possession of the hill country. But he could not drive out the inhabitants of the plain, because they had chariots of iron. And Hebron was given to Caleb, as Moses had said, and he drove out from it the 3 sons of Anak. But the people of Benjamin did not drive out the Jebusites who lived in Jerusalem, so the Jebusites have lived with the people of Benjamin in Jerusalem to this day. The house of Joseph also went up against Bethel, and the Lord was with them. And the house of Joseph scouted out Bethel. Now the name of the city was formerly Luz. And the spies saw a man coming out of the city, and they said to him, "Please show us the way into the city, and we will deal kindly with you." And he showed them the way into the city. And they struck the city with the edge of the sword, but they let the man and all his family go. And the man went to the land of the Hittites and built a city, and called its name Luz. That is its name to this day. Manasseh did not drive out the inhabitants of Bethshean and its villages, or Taanach and its villages, or the inhabitants of Dor and its villages, or the inhabitants of Ibleam and its villages, or the inhabitants of Megiddo and its villages, for the Canaanites persisted in dwelling in that land. When Israel grew strong, they put the Canaanites to forced labor, but did not drive them out completely. And Ephraim did not drive out the Canaanites who lived in Gezer, so the Canaanites lived in Gezer among them. Zebulun did not drive out the inhabitants of Kitron, or the inhabitants of Naalol, so the Canaanites lived among them, but became subject to forced labor. Asher did not drive out the inhabitants of Akko, or the inhabitants of Sidon, or of Olab, or of Akzib, or of Helba, or of Aphik, or of Rehob. So the Asherites lived among the Canaanites, the inhabitants of the land, for they did not drive them out. Naphtali did not drive out the inhabitants of Beth-Shemesh, or the inhabitants of Beth-Anath, so they lived among the Canaanites, the inhabitants of the land. Nevertheless, the inhabitants of Beth-Shemesh and of Beth-Anath became subject to forced labor for them. The Amorites pressed the people of Dan back into the hill country, for they did not allow them to come down to the plain. The Amorites persisted in dwelling in Mount Heriz, in Aijalon, and in Shaalbim, but the hand of the house of Joseph rested heavily on them, and they became subject to forced labor. And the border of the Amorites ran from the ascent of Akrabim, from Selah and upward.
All right, so we see the people take the job of cleaning out the land, cleaning the Canaanites out of the land. We see them take that job relatively seriously at the beginning, and then they end up giving up by the end of the chapter. But we see them split up, and they're gonna go take down specific people. We got Judah going out there. We've got other people going out to fight the Canaanites that are inhabiting different cities within each tribe's territory. And they begin to do a good job at it. And then by the end, we see in verse 27, Manasseh didn't drive out the right people. Ephraim didn't drive out the Canaanites. Zebulun didn't drive out. Asher didn't drive out all the inhabitants. Naphtali didn't do it. And so Dan didn't do it either. So we see all of these tribes fail to complete the mission of cleaning out the land, cleaning out the Canaanites who stayed in the land and stayed in the land of Canaan, the promised land, and they didn't do their job. And right now we're going to see in chapter 2 the consequences of them not cleaning out the land of all of the Canaanites. So let's continue the story, read here in chapter 2 of the book of Judges.
Chapter 2. Now the angel of the Lord went up from Gilgal to Bochim, and he said, "I brought you up from Egypt, and brought you into the land that I swore to give to your fathers. I said, I will never break my covenant with you, and you shall make no covenant with the inhabitants of this land. You shall break down their altars. But you have not obeyed my voice. What is this you have done? So now I say, I will not drive them out before you, but they shall become thorns in your sides, and their gods shall be a snare to you." As soon as the angel of the Lord spoke these words to all the people of Israel, the people lifted up their voices and wept. And they called the name of that place Bochim, and they sacrificed there to the Lord. When Joshua dismissed the people of Israel went each to his inheritance to take possession of the land. And the people served the Lord all the days of Joshua, and all the days of the elders who outlived Joshua, who had seen all the great work that the Lord had done for Israel. And Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110 years. And they buried him within the boundaries of his inheritance, in Timnath-Heres, in the hill country of Ephraim, north of the mountain of Gaash.
All right, so we see a recounting of Joshua's death, and he dies at 110 years old, and then he gets buried. And then people after that they end up sinning, and we see the disobedience go on here at the beginning of chapter 2. We see the angel of the Lord show up and say, "Hey, you guys didn't clean out the land. You didn't do your job. You didn't finish the mission, and because of that, punishment and judgment is coming your way." And he calls the Canaanite people, they're going to be thorns in your side because you didn't drive them out. We're going to see throughout the book of Judges, we're going to see the Israelites pay the price for not cleaning out the land of the Canaanites. And we'll continue to see that story as we go through the book of Judges. Lots of highs, lots of lows, lots of highs, lots of lows that we're going to see throughout this book. But I'm excited to dig into it here with you for the next couple of weeks. I think I'm going to run out of hats. I think I only have like 3 or 4 hats left. I can't believe we've made it this far, and I didn't even make it through the quarantine. But anyway, wearing my Rams hat today. Old logo, of course. But anyway, who cares about that? We're going to dig into Luke chapter 21 now. Luke chapter 21.
And he told them a parable. Look at the fig tree and all the trees. As soon as they come out in leaf, you see for yourselves and know that the summer is already near. So also, when you see these things taking place, you know that the kingdom of God is near. Truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all has taken place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. But watch yourselves, lest your hearts be weighed down with dissipation and drunkenness and cares of this life, and that day come upon you suddenly like a trap. For it will come upon all who dwell on the face of the whole earth. But stay awake at all times, praying that you may have strength to escape all these things that are going to take place, and to stand before the Son of Man. And every day he was teaching in the temple, but at night he went out and lodged on the mount called Olivet. And early in the morning all the people came to him in the temple to hear him. Chapter 22. Now the feast of unleavened bread drew near, which is called the Passover, and the chief priests and the scribes were seeking how to put him to death, for they feared the people. Then Satan entered into Judas, called Iscariot, who was of the number of the 12. He went away and conferred with the chief priests and officers how he might betray him to them. And they were glad and agreed to give him money. So he consented and sought an opportunity to betray him to them in the absence of a crowd. Then came the day of unleavened bread, on which the Passover lamb had to be sacrificed. So Jesus sent Peter and John, saying, "Go and prepare the Passover for us, that we may eat it." They said to him, "Where will you have us prepare it?" He said to them, "Behold, when you have entered the city, a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him into the house that he enters, and tell the master of the house, 'The teacher says to you, where is the guest room, where I may eat the Passover with my disciples?' And he will show you a large upper room furnished. Prepare it there." And they went and found it just as he had told them, and they prepared the Passover.
So as you can tell here from the book of Luke, chapter 21 and chapter 22, you kind of know where in the story this is. I know we've been talking about it every day, but we are right smack dab in the middle of the Passion Week. So we've seen Jesus defend himself against other religious leaders throughout this Passion Week. And now we see Judas betray Jesus. And obviously that was a terrible, terrible thing that he did, being one of his 12 disciples. And I think we always think of Judas as the bad guy, and rightly so, he is. But he was a good guy for quite a long time. He was with Jesus. He was learning from Jesus. He was, I'm sure, applying some of the things that Jesus was saying, not everything, but applying some of it. And so Judas was a close friend, really, to Jesus. But then he turns his back on Jesus for some money. And it's pretty messed up what he does here. It's pretty shallow for him to do this. But he does this according to the will of God. This is what God had commanded and decreed long ago in the Old Testament, that there would be a betrayer. And Judas would come in, and he would turn Jesus in for just a little bit of money, some silver, a couple of shekels of silver. So a sad reality that we meet today. Looking forward to continuing this Passion Week story of Jesus being arrested, tried, crucified, and ultimately rising again in Luke 24, which we read a couple days ago. But yeah, this is when the book of Luke gets really serious, and although you know the story, familiar with the details of the story, I want us to be reading this story afresh. I know I said that on Easter last week, but it is important for us to read it with the sincerity and the gravity that we should be reading it. It's not just an old story that we know and we know the details about. We know Judas, but let's really like put our feet down on the ground in those days and kind of experience it fresh, if you know what I mean. Where you're not shocked that Judas necessarily betrays Jesus, but you mourn that. Like that's a big deal. It's not just a VeggieTales story. This is a real life situation, and Judas betrayed his friend Jesus and his teacher and his pastor, if you will. And so this is a sad story that we read here today. But now let's go over to the book of Psalms. We've got two Psalms actually on tap for today: Psalm 90 and Psalm 91. Psalm 90 and Psalm 91, two short Psalms here that we're going to read together. So let's go right now.
Psalm 90, a prayer of Moses, the man of God. Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever you had formed the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. You return man to dust and say, Return, O children of man. For 1,000 years in your sight are but as yesterday when it is past, or as a watch in the night. You sweep them away as with a flood. They are like a dream, like grass that is renewed in the morning. In the morning it flourishes and is renewed. In the evening it fades and withers. For we are brought to an end by your anger. By your wrath we are dismayed. You have set our iniquities before you, our secret sins in the light of your presence. For all our days pass away under your wrath. We bring our years to an end like a sigh. The years of our life are 70, or even by reason of strength, 80. Yet their span is but toil and trouble. They are soon gone, and we fly away. Who considers the power of your anger and your wrath according to the fear of you? So teach us to number our days, that we may get a heart of wisdom. Return, O Lord. How long? Have pity on your servants. Satisfy us in the morning with your steadfast love, that we may rejoice and be glad all our days. Make us glad for as many days as you have afflicted us, and for as many years as we have seen evil. Let your work be shown to your servants, and your glorious power to their children. Let the favor of the Lord our God be upon us, and establish the work of our hands upon us. Yes, establish the work of our hands. Psalm 91. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God, in whom I trust. For he will deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with his pinions, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness is a shield and buckler. You will not fear the terror of the night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in darkness, nor the destruction that wastes at noonday. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. You will only look with your eyes and see the recompense of the wicked. Because you have made the Lord your dwelling place, the Most High, who is my refuge, no evil shall be allowed to befall you, no plague come near your tent. For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. On their hands they will bear you up, lest you strike your foot against a stone. You will tread on the lion and the adder, the young lion and the serpent you will trample underfoot. Because he holds fast to me in love, I will deliver him. I will protect him because he knows my name. When he calls to me, I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will rescue him and honor him. With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation.
All right, so we see God being the focal point of both of these Psalms. God is the one that we should be praising. In Psalm 90, we see just the psalmist, Moses in this case, just praise God for who he is and how sovereign and magnificent he is, and that his work is evident among the people of Israel. And then Psalm 91 is just a plea that God is the refuge and the trust and the fortress that we as Christians can hope and to trust in him. So hopefully you are following along with us in the main service with Pastor Elliot, going through Hebrews chapter 11, where we're going to be talking about faith week in and week out. And I think that this is a really important thing for us to study and reflect on, especially during this coronavirus time, to think about the faith and the trust that we can have in Christ. And Psalm 91 is evidence of that. We can hope in God as our refuge and our fortress. We can come to him with our requests. coming before him confidently, drawing before the throne of grace. The book of Hebrews says that we could do that confidently because we know we have a great high priest that we can trust in, and he's made a way for us to communicate and talk with God, and God can be that refuge and that fortress for us as well. So encouraging things here from Psalm 90 and 91, but now let's finish it up with the book of Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 13, we're going to finish it up here. Proverbs chapter 13, let's read 23 through 25. I realized we actually missed that yesterday. So Proverbs chapter 13, let's look at verse 23 through 25. It says, "The fallow ground of the poor would yield much food, but it is swept away through injustice. Whoever spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him is diligent to discipline him. The righteous has enough to satisfy his appetite, but the belly of the wicked suffers want." Again, we've seen righteousness, we've seen wisdom, we've seen foolishness, all throughout the book of Proverbs. And I do like that we get to go through Proverbs rather slowly, so we can kind of stop and reflect on each verse, because really Proverbs is really like fast paced. Like you hit one thing and we're talking about discipline from a father, and then we're talking about hunger in the next verse. And so it seems like, how does this even match up together? This doesn't make sense when they're next to each other. So it's good that we stop, we pause, just even verse 24. I like this proverb. Obviously it's talking about parenting here, but it says, "Whoever spares the rod or the spanking paddle, he hates his son, but he who loves him is diligent to discipline him." And I think oftentimes, especially as a teenager, you get disciplined. Sometimes, let's just say that. I was going to say often, but let's just say you get disciplined sometimes. But we oftentimes, as teenagers, you might think that discipline is a bad thing. My parents, they hate me. Why are they doing this? No, this verse right here, your parents, if they are disciplining you, it means that they actually love you. It is proof of their love for you. They're willing to inflict some kind of consequence, some kind of punishment in your life to get you to see the wrong that you have done and point you in the direction of doing what is right. I look back at my childhood and my teenage years, and I think if my parents didn't discipline me as harshly as they did, who knows where I would be. I'd probably be going down the wrong path right now if it wasn't for the discipline that they faithfully gave me, because I earned a lot of it growing up. But because of that, it's taught me right from wrong. And now I can rejoice because of that, and I can actually go back and I can thank my parents. So if they're watching, thank you, Mom and Dad. But that seems crazy right now. If you're a teenager, that you would ever get to the point of thanking your parents for the discipline that they give you. But ultimately, when the older you get, the more you'll realize the discipline that your parents have inflicted on you, it's actually a good thing. It's actually helping you grow in godliness and in holiness, in knowing right from wrong. Whoever spares the rod, he hates his son, but he who loves him is diligent to discipline him. So let's pursue. When you do get disciplined, I would want to say pursue discipline. You don't want to do that, but I would pursue the thought process and the mindset. When you do get disciplined, I would pursue righteousness because of that discipline. When your parents discipline you, you repent. You say, okay, I was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. Now next time I'm going to do this. Look at verse 25. It says, "The righteous has enough to satisfy his appetite, but the belly of the wicked suffers want." If you pursue wickedness, if you pursue stupidity and foolishness, then you're going to suffer want. But we can pursue righteousness, and discipline is a way that we can pursue righteousness even better and with deeper clarity. So let's do that today. Pursue righteousness and obedience and submission to God, even when we're disciplined sometimes by either your parents or your teachers, or oftentimes God is the one disciplining you. So let's learn from that. Let's pursue righteousness today. So we'll see you guys again tomorrow for another edition of Every Day in the Word. But until then, hopefully you're able to apply what we learned today.